morning, everyone, and welcome to the Plant-Based Asia Summit. I'm Angela Julita, your co-host for this event, where we aim to inspire a healthier and more sustainable Asia Pacific. Now, this morning, I am very excited to introduce you to a man who is spearheading the plant-based movement in Indonesia, which is Southeast Asia's largest nation. Dr. Susianto Tseng is a doctor of public health nutrition, as well as the president of World Vegan Organization and Vegan Society of Indonesia. He is a popular vegan figure in Indonesia and internationally. And Dr. Susianto is also an educator, a researcher, not to mention a successful businessman. He has also recently opened up the Dr. Susianto Wellness Vegan Center with locations in Jakarta and Bali, providing holistic consultation and therapy, as well as a healthy cafe. So welcome, Dr. Susianto. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you for inviting me and having me in this event.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So today we're going to be talking about plant-based nutrition and diet and how to boost our immunity and health, which is, as I'm sure you would agree, is so important during these uncertain times during the pandemic. So firstly, can you please explain, Dr. Susianto, what is inflammation and how is it responsible for disease? And maybe you can give us some examples of inflammatory foods.
Actually, simply, I mean, the inflammation process is actually a natural process, natural response from our body, and it's also actually a protective response and mechanism from our body, for our immune system and the chemicals created by our immune system to fight the external microorganisms like virus, bacteria, and also like fungus. But in the short term, actually inflammation is good for our body because they try to fight the the external microbe like an infection. But in the chronic and long term inflammation, this is a problem for our body. Can create some which call inflammatory disease, and this is a very close related to like cancers even and some other chronic diseases like our heart disease. Yeah.
So what are some examples of foods that are inflammatory?
Plant-based food, especially the whole food from the plant, we call it plant-based food or vegan food, actually can fight because plant-based foods contains a lot of phytochemical, and we should know phyto means plant. So phytochemical means the natural compounds which is only appear and contains in the plant-based food. And all animal foods doesn't or don't contains these phytochemicals. And there are many phytochemicals acting as an anti-cancer and also antioxidants. For example, I'm a doctor in Tempeh. So Tempeh actually is a very good food. and my dean called me Dr. Tempeh. I'm happy to to have this name because Tempeh have a lot of phytochemical, especially from the we call it isoflavone, isoflavone, flavonoid, and this is one of the antioxidants and also anti-cancers, which is under, we call it phytochemical group. And even in Tempeh, after fermentation from the soybean, the activity of the antioxidants increased a lot. For example, genistein in the original soybeans, after fermentation to Tempeh, then the activity of this genistein become very high. That's why it's better in the Tempeh. So this kind of antioxidants, anti-cancers, phytochemicals in plant-based food can fight, yeah. Not only like vitamin C, vitamin E, which is very plenty in plant-based food, and like beta carotene, also another kind of phytochemical under the group of flavonoid. We call carotenoid, yeah. So beta carotene and also like in tomato, you see some people very famous recognize the lycopene, lycopene, like in watermelon, also in tomato. This is very special and very strong to fight, especially for prostate cancer. Yeah. So this is a very important phytochemicals, natural compounds appear and contains in the natural whole food of plant-based diet. But on the contrary, some animal food, like processed food, processed meat, red meat, all is already considered by WHO as a carcinogen, carcinogenic compounds. And even the processed food is in the same group of carcinogens as cigarettes, smoking. So it's very high what you call risk of getting cancers. And I think it's very important for us to know about some research. I will explain after this, maybe in the next questions, about some scientific journal talking about plant-based food can decrease the risk and even reverse the chronic disease like cancers, heart disease, and also diabetes. Yeah.
Yes, that's fascinating. So basically, phyto is plant.
Yes.
And
is plant.
if we're talking about a whole food plant-based diet or a whole food vegan diet, like you have coined,
yes,
it's more about eating the foods that are whole. Whereas if you
yes,
are eating a normal sort of plant-based or normal vegan diet, even, you may still be eating a lot of junk food, a lot of processed food. And that, of course, is not healthy for you, right? So that's why it's important for us to say, really, the healthy one is the whole food plant-based.
Yes, that's why, Angie, we have to compare apple to apple. Yeah. So plant-based, the original meaning refer to vegan. Okay. Plant-based diet means vegan diet. If you want to put the healthiest, or maybe we can healthier, not healthiest, because healthiest depend on many other factors. Okay, the healthy way of eating plant-based food or vegan food, actually we have to put whole food plant-based diet. Then you have to put the same whole food vegan diet. So plant-based means vegan, whole food, yes, meaning whole food. So if you want to use the term of whole food plant-based diet, then we have to use whole food vegan diet. So that's the same meaning, yeah. So whole food, why whole food is very important and very healthy? Yeah, I think everybody knows, because they have plenty of nutrients. If the whole food already, how to call, process, yeah, go through the process, then it's become processed food. And a lot of things, a lot of compounds, and then additive, yeah, food additive include in this processed food. And also many toxic compounds appear during the process. Yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up, Dr. Susianto. The next question I have for you is, it's about protein. So it's a very common misbelief, I would say, that we can only get protein from animal foods. Can you please shed some light on this?
So many people believe proteins is very high contents in animal product, which is not correct. Let me prove to you. Yeah. The highest contents of proteins actually in soybean is about 34% to 36%. Yeah. But people will ask me about the quality of proteins. If you're talking about the quality of proteins, not only quantity, of course, we are talking about the essential amino acids. Okay. So human body needs about 20 amino acids. But from the 20 amino acids, there are only about 8 to 9 essential amino acids. What does it mean by essential amino acids? And the rest, about the 12 amino acids, is called non-essential amino acids. Essential here doesn't mean it's important, and then the non-essential means not important. So the non-essential amino acids means our body can produce by ourselves. We don't need to take it from external, yeah, from food that we eat. But the nine is actually for baby, for children, yeah. But for adults, actually we only need 8 essential amino acids, yeah. So the 8 essential amino acids, like methionines, yeah, phenylalanine, all the lysine, yeah, a lot of about 8 to 9. So these essential amino acids cannot be produced by our body. So we need from our food, okay, or beverage. And if we are talking about the quality of proteins in the soybean, many people don't know. And they claim only meat product or animal product can have a full set of essential amino acids, which is not true. This is a myth. Yeah. The fact is, the soybean product, including the I mean the derivative product like tempeh, tofu, even increase the bioavailability of the proteins, yeah, and the digestibility of the proteins. Like in tempeh, the digestibility of proteins is very is very high, and also the absorptions of proteins and like mineral calcium, because it is already under the fermentation process. So the bioavailability, the absorptions, the percentage of absorptions of like minerals and proteins is high, and our body can absorb the nutrients from tempeh is much higher percentage compared to the original soybean. So all the essential amino acids required by our body all contains available in the soybeans. so you cannot say, people cannot say that proteins from animal is a class 1. I mean the premium, yeah. I mean in Bahasa we call class kakap. and then the proteins from the plant like soybeans and other legumes, beans and nuts is the low class of proteins. It's not true. It's not true. Yeah, it's not true. Yeah. And you know the second one, the second highest one is like peanut. It's about 28% of proteins, and then the mung bean is about 24. And if you compare to any kind of meats, it's only from 9 to 23% proteins. And many people like egg to have a very high contents of protein, which is not true. I mean, the contents of proteins in egg is only how much? 12.9 to 13.9%. So the proteins in soybeans is about 3 times higher than the proteins in egg. And fish and seafood only contains proteins from 16 to 23 or 25%. Yeah.
Wow, okay, so that's a very interesting statistic. But also, how about, I mean, as I understand it, every single vegetable has some protein in it, even if it's just a small amount.
It's correct. It's correct.
Yeah. But the other thing I'd like to know, so we have been sort of miseducated over the years to believe that we need a very high amount of protein in our diet, correct?
Yeah.
So I believe it was something like you need something like more than 20%. Can you please tell us what is the actual figure? How much do we actually need from protein?
Yeah, this is a very important message from the research from Professor Colin Campbell. If you're talking about taking proteins more than 20%, this is a big trigger for cancer. So according to Professor Colin Campbell, we can switch off and on the cancer in our body by controlling the intake of proteins. Okay, so actually we only need, this is for adult, yeah, for adult, yeah, 0.8 grams of proteins per 1 kg of body weight. So let's say my body weight is about 70, okay? I think Angie only 50 maybe. Yeah, normally lady is slim, right? Okay, but also quite slim, you know. Okay, so this is one of the benefits of controlling our ideal healthy body weight from vegan diet, okay? Whole food vegan diet. Okay, not junk food, yeah, not junk food vegan diet, yeah. Junk food vegan diet or junk food plant-based diet also can increase the body weight. You can see some junk food vegan also obese, you know. They also have obesity. So I mean 0.8 time multiply by 70 kg of my body weight. So I only need 56, okay? 0.8 multiplied by 70. I only need 56 grams of proteins per day. If I eat 100 grams of tempeh, it's only 4 small pieces. Small pieces. One small piece of tempeh is about 25 grams, okay? So if I eat 4 small pieces of tempeh a day, 2 for the lunch and 2 for the dinner, then I already take 100 grams of tempeh. And in 100 grams of fresh tempeh contains about 18.3 to 19, and some tempeh contains about 20 grams of proteins. So about 20%. What does it mean? I already get about 50% of my proteins requirements a day. And I eat tofu, I eat beans, I eat mung bean, I know bubur kacang ijo. I mean, the mung bean porridge, which is very, very famous in Java, in Indonesia. So it's very easy to fulfill the requirements of proteins. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, no worry about protein deficiency by adopting a plant-based diet or vegan diet. Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you, Dr. Susianto. So that's, of course, the main message from that is not to worry so much about protein, because as you said, only 4 pieces of tempeh and you're already over your daily requirement.
No, it's about 50%. Yeah.
Oh, 50%. You're 50% of your daily requirement.
But you still eat other things, right? Another food, right?
Of course.
So it's very easy. Yeah.
Very easy. Okay, so do you have maybe some other common misbeliefs surrounding a plant-based diet?
Another very important myth is about calcium. Calcium is not the highest nutrients in cow milk. Okay, so in other words, people say cow milk contains the highest calcium, which is not true. This is a myth. This is not fact. In fact, the food contains the highest calcium is sesame seed. Okay, sesame seeds contains about 1,160 milligram calcium in 100 grams of sesame seeds. If you compare to cow milk, in 100 grams cow milk only contains 118 milligrams of calcium. So I can say the calcium in sesame seeds is about 10 times higher than cow milk. And the second one is agar. You know agar? Is it in English agar, Angie? We call agar-agar in Bahasa, right?
Here we also call it agar-agar. It's a kind of jelly from the
algae. Yeah, jelly from algae.
Yes.
So agar contains calcium about 400 milligrams in 100 grams of agar. So I can say the calcium in agar is about 4 times higher than calcium in cow milk. Not to say about any kind of beans and nuts, almond, soybean, mung bean, and especially what they call the chickpea, and also like tofu, tempeh, oats. All are higher than calcium in in cow milk. And especially in tempeh, the calcium in 100 grams of tempeh is about 129 milligrams, which is higher already than the calcium in cow milk. And do you know the calcium content is beef, chicken, and mutton? Let me tell you. In 100 grams of beef, only contain 11 milligrams of calcium. Only 11 milligrams of calcium. And in 100 grams of chicken meat, only contains 14, not 40, yeah? Not 40, but 14. Only 14 milligrams of calcium. And 100 grams of mutton only contains about 11 milligrams of calcium. So I can say in general, the calcium in tempeh is about 9 to 11 times higher than beef, chicken, and mutton.
It's fascinating. Yeah. The other thing with cow's milk is a lot of research. I'm sure you can explain this a bit more, Dr. Susianto, but it shows that it actually leaks calcium from the bones. Is that correct?
Is it? Yes, it's correct. Yeah. So it's plus minus of drinking the cow milk in this term of problem. Of course, cow milk also contains calcium, but the content of calcium in cow milk is not the highest one. This is the very important we have to highlight. The important point we have to highlight. Okay, and I talk about this in the Better TV to have everybody know about this fact. And this is the contents, quantitative amount, like the proteins, the amino acids. Yeah, we are talking the proteins. We're talking about quantity and quality. The same problem happened to calcium and other minerals. So if I talk about the quantity of calcium is very high in sesame seeds, agar, any kinds of bean, including the tofu, tempeh, yeah, people will ask me about how about the absorption percentage of calcium. This is referred to quality. So it's not difficult to answer other people questions. you have to be all out. Yeah. So again, I will describe about the quality in terms of percentage of absorption of calcium. The absorption of calcium from cow milk is not the highest one. Again, I have to make another statement. Okay. the calcium absorption percentage of cow milk is only 32%. Okay, 32%. And how much or how many percent of the calcium absorption from broccoli? From broccoli, you know broccoli? Yeah, 62%. It's about twice. It's about twice, 2 times higher than the absorption percentage of the calcium in cow milk. And second highest one is about, you know, cauliflowers, kale, yeah, bok choy. In Bahasa we call sawi, yeah. The absorptions of calcium in this kind of vegetable is about 45%. Still much higher than cow milk calcium. And then other like, you know, lobak putih, turnip. Turnip is about how much? It's about 49 to 50%. Still very high. And it's higher than the absorption percentage of calcium in cow milk. And cow milk contains calcium less than the calcium in tofu. But the percentage absorption of calcium in cow milk is similar to tofu. It's about 31 to 32%. But of course, the contents of calcium in tofu is much, much higher. This is the power of tempeh. Why tempeh contains the very high bioavailability absorptions of calcium and iron. So please eat tempeh to prevent osteoporosis, osteopenia, and anemia.
I love tempeh myself, but the one thing that I'd say is it's often deep fried, which is very unhealthy. Correct, Dr. Susianto?
Yes, correct.
So
correct,
how would you prepare your tempeh then? Any tips?
Yeah. The first thing I have to describe is anything, not only tempeh, any food, including all plant-based food, all animal foods. If you fry them, then they will decrease, they will lose some nutrients, especially the VOC, volatile organic compounds, contains in the food. So not only tempeh, the best way to process the food is steam. Otherwise, only 2 groups of plant-based food, vegetable and fruits, you can eat it raw food, but only vegetable and fruits. And the rest, so don't eat the raw mung bean. We damage our teeth.
Wow, I'm not trying that. Thank you for the tip.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next question, Dr. Susianto.
Okay, please.
We're going to then take a little dive into our immune system. So maybe some viewers aren't aware, but most of our immune system actually lives in our gut, correct? In the lining of our gut as microbiome. Yes. Can you share what happens to a person's immune system when they eat a plant-based meal versus when they eat an animal-based meal?
One important thing is about, maybe you have heard, but actually our anatomy, our human anatomy is about 90% similar to herbivore, not to carnivore, okay? So our intestine is very long actually, okay? Not like a carnivore animal, yeah? The intestine is very short. So if they eat animal product, there will no problem, okay, for them. Yeah, we are very seldom hearing or knowing animal gut colon cancer. But it happened to many people, okay, many humans. So because our body is actually not suitable for eating meat. or eating animal products, because animal products don't contain dietary fiber. This is a two statement, very important statement, NG. All animal products don't contain dietary fiber, but they contain cholesterol, okay? But all plant-based food or plant food really contains a lot of dietary fibers, but all plant food don't contain any cholesterol, including durian. Durian doesn't contain cholesterol. This is a good news, yeah, for the durian lovers, yeah. And then many people in Indonesia just misunderstood. They believe coconut milk, coconut oil contains a lot of cholesterol. This is a myth. This is not fact. Coconut milk, coconut oil don't contain any cholesterol, okay? They contain fat, but a good fat. Even they are coming from a saturated fat, but they are under a group of medium chain fatty acid. Lauric acid, okay? Lauric acid is considered a medium chain fatty acid with the carbon chains below than 14 carbons, okay? And this medium chain fatty acid from coconut product don't increase the level of cholesterol in our body, especially the LDL, the bad cholesterol, the low density lipoprotein. But they are a very good source of calorie and energy for our body. The mechanism is different from the saturated fat from animal, because most of the saturated fat from animal product actually under the group of long chain fatty acid. The carbon chain is longer than 14, sometimes 18, like stearic acid. The stearic acids, the long chain fatty acid, saturated fat from animal can increase the level of LDL, bad cholesterol in our body. It means increase the risk of chronic disease, heart disease, hypertension, stroke, yeah? But tempeh, again, tempeh, have a very low fat, only 4%. And most of the plant fat is considered as healthy fat. Most of the plant-based fat is actually unsaturated fatty acid, MUFA and PUFA. Have you heard about MUFA and PUFA? Mono unsaturated fatty acid, MUFA. And then PUFA is polyunsaturated fatty acid. They are all in our body, can decrease the level of LDL, bad cholesterol, the low density lipoprotein. It means the fat, even the fat, people worry about fat, but the fat from the animal, from the plant actually is low in quantity and good in quality, because they are MUFA and PUFA, unsaturated fatty acid. And the MUFA and PUFA in our body can decrease the LDL, the bad cholesterol. It means the fat from plant-based food, from vegan food, can decrease the risk of chronic disease, like heart disease, and also even cancer, okay? Even cancer, yeah.
So you would say, for our immune system, is it better to eat more plant-based foods so that we have a stronger immune system? Yes,
thank you, Angie. My answer for your question only 50%, 50%, yeah. Another 50% is talking about the plant-based food. Just now, I just mentioned about the danger of eating the animal food in the relationship with our immune system, yeah. And now we're talking about the plant-based food. Plant-based food, on the contrary of the animal food, contains dietary fibers, okay? And dietary fiber can be acting as a prebiotic. So this difference between probiotic and prebiotic, okay? So the probiotic is like a bacteria. I mean, the foreign compound, foreign things, put it into the food and then eaten by people, by human. And this is a strange things actually from outside. This is not a natural one. This is not a natural way to eat, yeah? So probiotic is something like lactobacillus, yeah, bacteria, they put it into the food. But if you're talking about plant-based food, the natural whole food, whole plant-based food actually contains the natural dietary fibers, and natural fiber actually is a prebiotic for our microorganism. We call it microflora. This is the good bacteria in our digestive system, in intestine, yeah, in colon. And I agree with the statement from Angie just now. The immunity of our body is very close related to the health conditions and status of the microbe in our intestine. According to the scientific research and studies, 70 to 80% of our immune system depend on the health status of the microbe in our digestive system.
Let's also then move on to other diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, which is very prevalent in Asia at the moment, and even cancer. So these can actually be reversed. We touched on this earlier on a whole food plant-based diet. So can you please share maybe a few case studies on this?
A lot of scientific journal. Just talking some of those journal. Firstly, I want to share about a journal in 2014 published by the Journal of American College Nutrition and also summarized by the PCRM by Dr. Neil Bernard, Physician Committee for Sports Medicine. We talked together in Los Angeles, San Francisco in 2012, I think, yeah, in our event. So in this study, trying to find out the relationship between the nutrition and cancer, okay? So a daily intake of 2 glasses of cow milk, we're talking about cow milk, can increase the risk of prostate cancer by 60%. Okay? Another journal talking about if people eat only 2.5 eggs, 2.5 in a week, not a day. People eat about 5 eggs, 20 eggs a day, yeah? So in this study, only 2.5 eggs per week can increase the risk of prostate cancer by 81%. And then the daily intake of red meat and then processed meat, alcohol, even 400 milligrams of calcium supplement and 2 glasses of alcohol, daily intake, mean a day, can increase the risk of getting prostate cancer, colon cancer. But on the contrary, by eating cruciferous vegetable, cruciferous vegetable, like broccoli, cauliflowers, and carotenoid vegetable, like carrot, tomato, yeah, and fruits like watermelon and other kind of foods, can decrease the risk of colon cancer and breast cancer. And some hoax from the social media talking about this myth. Women, ladies cannot take soy product because can increase the risk of breast cancer. In this study published in 2014 by American College Nutrition Journal, daily intake of soy products, okay, can decrease, not increase, but decrease the risk of breast cancer by 30%, 30, which is very significant decrease, okay? And by eating a tomato product, can decrease about 27% of gastric cancer. And do you know, a junk food from animal, of course, vegan, plant-based food also have a junk food, but we're talking about the healthy whole food, yeah, whole plant-based food. So a junk food can increase the risk of gastric cancer by how many percent, 200%, 200. And a healthy or healthful lifestyle can decrease all cancers, not only certain cancers, all cancers by 30%. What does it mean by healthy lifestyle?
What does it mean? Well,
yeah, by healthy.
whole food diet. It's not sedentary, so you're active. You have an active lifestyle.
Yes.
And also stress, which I wanted to touch on next. So obviously not having stress.
No alcohol.
Did I pass?
Tobacco.
No alcohol. Yes.
Yeah, you passed about your mark will be 80.
Oh, you're a tough marker, Dr. Susianto. Well,
okay.
How about the stress? So I want to actually touch on stress because during these last, as you said, 2 years of this pandemic, people are under a lot of stress. So I want to ask you, what actually happens to a person's body, their immunity, their health when they are under prolonged stress?
When the people get stressed or when people are stressful, actually the body produces free radicals. You know free radicals? And the free radicals can damage our cell and our DNA. And in a long time, especially the long chronic, inflammation that we mentioned and discussed just now in the previous, and also a long-term stress can increase a lot of free radical in our body, can damage our DNA, our tissue, our cell, and this can create a lot of problem. And this is the risk factors for chronic disease. Not only cancers, including heart disease, and then cardiovascular disease, So this is the link between stress and also the immune system. And when the body is stressful, produce a lot of free radical, then they will decrease our immune system.
Well, it's very, very interesting that all these things that you shared with us today, very fascinating. And
thank you.
I wish you all the best with your wellness center, your wellness vegan center.
Thank you, Angie.
Yes.
And welcome to our wellness vegan center in Jakarta.
I'm there. Yes, I'm there. As soon as we can start to fly again, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. Well, thank you again so much for your time, Dr. Susianto, and hope to meet you in person sometime. Terima kasih. Thank you so much.
Yes, Angie. Terima kasih, Angie. Welcome. Terima kasih. Thank you.